to today's episode of the SESHRM podcast, Putting the Human in Business. This podcast is part of the SESHRM chapter, the premier organization for HR and talent professionals in the Sioux Empire, Midwest, and beyond. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Very excited for this inaugural episode of the SESHRM podcast.
Woo!
I am J.R. Rowenhorst. I'm the technology director for Sioux Empire SHRM. With me, Colleen Olson. Want to say
Colleen
hello,
Olson.
Colleen?
Hi, Colleen.
Doing well today, I hope.
Yes, very well.
All right. And we have a speaker that needs no introduction, is known near and far, the man, the myth, the legend. John T. Meyer is with us. So
That's too
welcome,
kind.
John.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, and enjoyed
Yeah.
being with the SHRM group a couple weeks ago. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a great presentation, great workshop. Heard nothing but great things about it. I certainly loved attending and hearing it. So hopefully we get to dive a little bit deeper into different
Yeah.
areas. You touched on so many great things. But we'll pick your brain on some areas. If there's things you want to follow up after that, maybe you didn't get to, you wish you had said, by all means, we can have it be pretty fluid, and love to get any and all of your ideas, no matter what, because we know you're quite the leader in this space that we'll be talking about, and love your insights and thoughts all over the place. So
Let's dive in. Let's do it.
all right. Well, first off, though, before we get there, want to start out with a little icebreaker we like to ask everybody. So I'm going to ask you, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen on a resume? Or I'll even expand, if you've ever heard in an interview for all the people that you've hired over time.
Oh man, it's a really good one. The weirdest thing. I mean, I think the one that was always this may be like a slight pivot, but a pet peeve was the amount of times that I would see resumes where I think colleges must tell young folks, to put objective at the top,
Mm.
and it would be for a completely different job other than what we were, for Lemonly, like to achieve a marketing job in the construction industry. And I'd be like, oh no, like you didn't change it, right? You didn't update the document. And so I think the amount of time I'm like, just get rid of that. If you're not going to customize it, if you're not going to change it, don't have it.
Yeah, that's always like a red flag for me too. If I see someone whose resume clearly doesn't match what they're applying for, I'm like, I don't want to consider you.
I mean, similar, related, but slightly different in an interview. My favorite kind of interview question, and I will steal it. Shout out to Morgan, who was a Lemonly team member. She would ask this, what's your favorite Lemonly infographic? Right?
Oh.
Because on our website we have, and it would be so funny because you could see we have hundreds of examples. And if they would say the answer was like the most recently posted one, then you knew that they just like went to the website for a second and didn't
Oh
really do their
yeah.
homework. They're like, "Oh, I love that. Really loved that Green Bay Packers one that we just happened to post last week."
You're like, what do
So
you really know about us though?
yeah, yeah.
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 So that's a good icebreaker. I got to think on the resume part.
All right. Well,
So I have a question that I thought would be kind of fun to ask too, just because this is a Sioux Falls podcast. I know you've been, I think Brookings, you've been all around Minneapolis, right? Um, if you had to explain like the Sioux Falls work ethic to
Mm,
someone who just moved here from, like, let's say, the West Coast or the East Coast, like
yeah,
what would you tell them about people in Sioux Falls or maybe even the Midwest?
yeah. I mean, I think absolutely. I think this is true, and I've spoke to entrepreneur friends and CEOs across the country. Like the work ethic is real, the desire to get the job done, to do it well. Um, I think generally to show up to work without too much complaint. I would say there's pros and cons to that, right? The idea we talked about in that workshop of like celebrating your wins and not just working to the grindstone. But I think the work ethic is real. I think specific to Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is a real, whether you want to call us a big town or a small city, it really kind of in that middle ground, right? Where I think there's pros and cons to that too. Like I feel like if you come into the Sioux Falls market not being from here, it can be hard and intimidating at first
Oh
because it
yeah,
feels like it's hard to break through. Everyone knows everybody. But if you can
I
get through
really do too.
if you can get through that first layer, then you kind of do know everybody. And like that's why things like SHRM exist, or In my old days, Advertising Federation or whatever these like chapters, associations are one place to go. But I also think like now, because now I've been here since '09, like the restaurants I go to, I know the owners of the coffee shops, I know the owner, like I know these people because you kind of go to the same places.
Right.
Um, so that again, in terms of a professional context, that means don't ever burn a bridge. That
Mm.
means like play the long game in terms of your relationship and network. Um, and so again, the pros and cons to these things, but I think of Sioux Falls probably more as like a big town than a small
Yeah,
city once you really
I
get
can see
plugged in.
that. Yeah, and I also think that Sioux Falls, even maybe just Midwest, like we're really hardy, like
Yep.
we do our jobs and it's like, I do it because that's what I do. I'm not asking for a big thank you or something big, as a reward or anything, but I work, that's what I do. I make a living. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I have a friend who runs a business in southwest part of the United States, and just the description of employees and work ethic, I don't want to generalize much, but
Mm,
it seems very different than what you see here in the
harder
Midwest.
to staff maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to recap too much from the January workshop that you did. That was great. However, we are likely going to have some listeners that weren't able to catch
yeah,
the January meeting. And so, if you could, I'd love to hear a little bit of your take, especially since we were talking about Sioux Falls. Um, really, when you first arrived here, and paint just a little bit of that biography. And you can even start prior to that,
sure.
but give a little bit of that overview and anything more on Sioux Falls that you've learned from a personal or even business perspective. Um,
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like I'm a South Dakota kid, grew up in Brookings, went to school in Northeast Iowa, and then started my career in Minneapolis, but I didn't last very long. But I made it 11 months in corporate America as a consultant in big consulting, a company called Accenture. Really grateful for that. It taught me a lot, taught me a lot of things that I maybe didn't want in my career, but also learned sort of a little bit of the corporate game and certainly the jargon and like how to play some of that. My brother and I got a grant through the state of South Dakota. There was an organization, if you rewind a little bit, it's now Startup Sioux Falls, previously Zeal, and previously a group called SDTBC, which is the South Dakota Technology and Business Center. So for local listeners, it's out where, well, it was where Zeal was, or previous. Now it's like Southeast Tech, I think their nursing program.
Mm,
Um, and so it was an economic development grant. You got $15,000 in an 8-week program to start a business. And this is in like spring of 2009. My brother and I whiteboarded an idea for a business, and we thought, man, South Dakota companies aren't ready for this new era of the internet, which at that time was Web 2.0, Facebook, blogs,
yeah.
Twitter, YouTube. Like we should come back home and teach these businesses how to use this stuff. And good idea in practice, not a great business model like teaching, like we would do Rotary clubs and church basements and Kiwanis and like whoever would listen to us, we'd come sort of spread the gospel of these new tools and why you should be on them. But then the business model was like for $200 a month, we'll run your Twitter account. Like it just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Um,
how'd that monetize for you?
yeah, so we were bad entrepreneurs. Like eventually we made more of a, like an education training platform, which is what we should have done from the start. But and then eventually Nine Clouds chose a niche, which is really what we should have done. And that's the whole sort of through line to why Lemonly existed
Mm.
or exist. But so that's the story of how I got here was a $15,000 grant. I would tell you as a South Dakota kid, we kind of thought we'd just so I have this joke that I have a 612 phone number.
Oh yeah.
I've lived in Sioux Falls since 2009. Why do I have a 612 number? Is I thought that I didn't think I was going to stay. So like we
Oh.
thought we would come here and get this grant, and part of the grant was you had to be in Sioux Falls or in South Dakota. So we chose Sioux Falls, and we are like, we'll get the money, we'll fulfill the grant, and then we'll go back to Minneapolis. We'll get the heck out of here. Because I think this might resonate with some people. If you grew up here, I think the tides have changed on this, but if you were a 90s kid growing up here, you probably kind of wanted to get out of here.
Oh
And
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was part of this grant was kind of that brain drain, like bring talent back to the state. Now I think there's just so much about being in Brookings I didn't know about South Dakota that now I'm super proud of and love. And so that's why I still have a 612 number, which is really annoying when you go to the clinic or and they already have your first 3 digits filled in. Um, but
And
anyway,
that was one of the first things I did when I moved back from Texas. I changed my number and I stayed on the line with Verizon for like 15 minutes and I was like, I need a really easy number. I have a 7-year-old. She needs to be able to remember it because she didn't have a phone, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, so for me it was but also to your point, we leave because we're like, there's got to be more than Sioux Falls or more than South Dakota. I
Hmm.
mean, I came back 15 years later, you know, and now I'm like proud to be in Sioux Falls, proud to be a
Yeah.
South Dakotan again, you know? So,
Yeah. And I think some of this coincides with the rise of the internet and the way to the exposure of ideas and to realize, hey, maybe you can have the best of both worlds where you can live in a great place that's awesome to raise a family that still, at Lemonly then we had our clients, about 5% of our business was done in South Dakota. So we were still dealing with clients all over the country and the world. I got to travel to go visit these clients. And so I felt like I kind of hit the jackpot of living a South Dakota life and all the benefits that that comes with while running a sort of national company. Not that we were nationally known, but like, national in our work. Um, and so to bring back to your question, like what does that make unique about South Dakota is I think what we said off the top is that building teams here, I think is really powerful. And I think we have the talent to compete at all levels and truly believe that. That's the strength side of South Dakota. I think the weakness is that and I stole this line from someone that we saw in Leadership South Dakota, a CEO who said, "We love to be third place, right? We're very much satisfied and happy with third place, and we will settle for that. We don't. Why should we? Why could we be best at something, right? And I think that's the downside is like we need to dream a little bit bigger and shoot for the moon a little bit further, a little bit higher. And so I think that's sort of the other side of the coin with the hard work ethic, hardy attitude and mentality is like, what if we could be the best?
yeah. I know you're right though. We are so ready to just settle for like, you know, I'm doing my thing. I'm making some money. I'm happy with that, but not necessarily like, hey, we're South Dakotans. We're gonna be the best ever. And I kind of think some of that though is I don't know, around the country. Like when I was in the military, people will be like, "Oh, you're from South Dakota?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But like what? And they're like, "We kind of thought that place was a myth. We've never met
Yeah.
anyone from there."
Yeah. One of my favorite
We kind
parts
of
of
like
our,
not important, you know?
I mean, everybody, if you work with clients outside of the Midwest, has gotten I've never met anyone from South
Yeah,
Dakota before, right?
for
There's
real.
only 800,000 of us. On the bottom of Lemonly's website, I don't think they have this anymore, but we had a little pin drop and it was the United States without the lines of the states. And so we'd say drop the pin where Sioux Falls, South Dakota is. And if you got it, it made this little lemon spin. But if you got it anywhere else, it's like, no, that's not quite right. Because nobody knew where the heck it was. And we just got sick of people saying, I've never met anyone. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I
usually
also
the
think, again, to flip that around, if you're in a business going beyond the state, that's your story, right? That's part of the
Mhm.
uniqueness. Like, hey, we're an entrepreneur here in South Dakota. Hey, we're a company here in South. Hey, we're best in the world, but based in South. Like, that's part of
Yeah,
your story, and you should lean into that.
amazing.
yeah, I think there's definitely been some perks, and South Dakota probably got on the map a little bit more during the pandemic, and obviously, Christine Ohm has I think put us more there. But you see businesses coming in more just because of I think kind of the benefits and the business culture of what Sioux Falls and actually more of the state of South Dakota can offer. But um, one of the things kind of piggybacking off of that. That Sioux Falls work ethic a little bit is that um, I'd love to hear. I really enjoyed your presentation again in January. And speaking of Sioux Falls, I thought or South Dakota. Yeah, who'd have thought you'd run into somebody from South Dakota while hiking a mountain, right? Uh,
Yeah,
that was a good little
That is
reference. So
wild.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, super small world. But yeah, hearing so many stories like that, we know you live very intentionally, and I'd love to know what are some of the boundaries that you've set as an entrepreneur for your work with Lemonly, or even now, and what's some of those common guidelines that you live by, and you think, and maybe you've seen that with your clients too, and other CEOs that you would highly recommend, whether you've worked with them or not. What's worked
yeah,
for you?
yeah. I mean, I love the word intentional, right? I think it's backing up and deciding. What matters to me? What do I care about? What do I want to spend my time on? Right? We only get one life. And so one of the first exercises I do in my CEO coaching is called the 3 year vivid vision. It's like, let's throw the ball out 3 years from today. So February of 2029. And like, what do you want your life to look like? And get really detailed, right? Like, where do you wake up and what do you have for breakfast and where do you go and who do you work with and what do you work on and how much money do you make? Like, even saying that sentence is really hard for people in South Dakota. How much money are you going to make in 3 years, right?
Yeah, it's hard to be like, I'm worth this much money.
Yeah, dream big, think big, right?
Yeah.
What could it be? Um, and so then ask yourself this year, this quarter, this month, this week, today, am I doing things that should move me closer to that vision? And I know it's
Mm.
hard to think about today on a Friday or next week. How's that going to shape my life in 3 years? But how is it not going to, right? Like that's what you're moving toward. And so I think that's that point about intention. So then we can design our weeks to look a certain way, our days to look a certain way. Now, I know if you're listening to this podcast and you're an HR professional, you might have a boss, you have someone you need to listen to versus say an entrepreneur or a CEO. But I think this applies to all aspects of life. I talked about in that presentation about your daily non-negotiables, right? What are the three, four, five things you want to do every day that matter just to you and your family? I think boundaries are important. You know, I think we tend to let our inbox sort of manage our life and manage our day, where you're spending your whole life playing defense. I mean, if you think
Mhm.
about the idea of like our emails are out there in a company server or LinkedIn, whatever. If you just stay in your inbox all day, you're doing other people's like dumping grounds. Like you get
Yeah.
CC'd on an email, you get copied, you get forwarded. It's like imagine I have this kind of theory I've been working that I think most of us who have white collar jobs could probably do our jobs in like 2 hours a day if we could actually just focus for 2 hours a day.
Oh, yeah, for real.
So like I just think that in the social media, internet, AI world that we're in and headed toward, attention span and discipline focused work is going to be a superpower. And so to your point, JR, like boundaries matter, intention matters because gosh, I think I even read recently because we contain it so much information now, our brains are struggling to codify kind of like long-term memories. It's why things from like the
I've heard
90s,
that too. It's wild.
yeah,
Like,
things from
we're
our
not making more
childhood,
memories. Yeah.
yeah, feel really vivid. Whereas if you think of life from maybe about COVID on, just kind of feels a little bit like a blur. And it's
Yeah.
actually because we're consuming so much that our memories can't like deeply root these memories. Our brains can't. Um, And so that's kind of wild. So like we really need to slow down. Otherwise, you're going to all of a sudden be 10 years older and be like, why am I in the relatively same spot?
Yeah. Or like, why am I 90 and I don't remember anything?
That's maybe a different reason, but
Yeah.
yes.
Well, yeah, that's true. That is really true.
Yeah, I can, from a personal perspective, not going to get too deep, but with certainly with cell phones and social media, and I think of our children and that book by Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious
Yeah,
Generation. You've
good
probably
book.
seen, read, heard that, and just yeah, seeing that at a larger scale, just kind of how it's affecting society. I think it kind of is what it is, and we're learning from it, but. Yeah, it's definitely front of mind. I think how it's coming into play with some of our attention spans and where we go with things and just the speed of information. I mean, I hear those stats every year or so of the amount of data that we collect in 1 year is more than entire human history, and
Yeah, ever
it's just
created. Yeah.
it's just exponentially going up.
It kind of
And
makes me think of that scene in The Matrix. Like there's the red pill and the blue pill, right? And it's like, which path are you going to choose? And just to remember, hopefully, if I made that clear on that talk, is that like you can choose which path you want. You get to choose. It's not chosen for you. You don't have to play this version of the game or this version of life. And so, and I'm not saying I'm probably not all one way or all the other way, right? Life is more gray. And so I think like be intentional about the choices you make is really the TLDR there.
Yeah, and I have to mention your newsletter that you send out every
Hmm.
week. So anybody listening, if you don't know, John's got a newsletter and has got some really interesting topics. And he sent one out today about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in there getting back to goals, and like kind of realizing, you are capable of doing more. Can you tell us more about, the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows what that is by now, but the idea that you don't feel like you belong, you're not capable, it should be someone else and not you, this idea really, I think hampers and affects what I think I said in that newsletter, every single person. And if not, there's maybe a handful of people in this world, we can probably think of who they are that would don't have imposter syndrome. And if they don't, they're probably wildly
Yeah.
narcissistic.
Makes
I
you
just
Um,
don't care.
Dunning-Kruger effect then.
yes, exactly. And
To
so,
the
yeah, the
opposite
more
end.
you know, the more you know, the less you realize you know. And so, I think it's a healthy thing. So that's the first thing is like it's okay, but you can't let it cripple you, right? And I think we have a lot of people, and this is probably back to the South Dakota piece too, of like, well, I'll just wait until maybe that career opportunity is given to me, or if I'm asked, or if I'm told to step up. And it's just like, well, what if you did the other way and you decided to go after it and maybe ask, heaven forbid, ask for it, right? And so I think that's the idea. And so when you get crippled by imposter syndrome, get back to your basics. That's daily non-negotiables, that's goals, the thing, control the controllables. Like, man, I mean, I try to be pretty good at keeping up on the news in the world. And as a coach, I feel like that's part of my job. But
Hmm.
really quickly you can get doom scrolled into thinking, our world is falling apart because of AI or politics or whatever the thing is. Choose the flavor of the week. And so you just got to get back to like the things you can control.
Yeah, those socials, they can be dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, like what is it, keeping up with the Joneses, if that's still a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah. I talked about momentum makers and momentum takers, right? And one of the takers is this idea of false goals,
yeah,
where we are chasing some other person's version of what we think life should look like. And then the problem there is when you get it, when you get the lake place or you get the promotion or you get the title, you realize you never even really wanted it, right? It doesn't
yeah,
actually make you happy. And
yeah,
so just make sure you're chasing your version of what you want.
yeah.
That's actually a great transition. For one of the questions I had for you today is that in terms of leaders you've worked with or not worked with, just recommended too, um, that you've seen, what are, I don't want to, mistakes might be the wrong word, but where do you see leaders could maybe better align than just trying to maybe race in that arms war with their competitors?
Hmm.
So to what you were just speaking about, that they might be trying to do AI. Okay, we're not going to get through the podcast without the mention of AI, and that
Yeah.
everybody's wanting to do it. But I actually just came from a luncheon where there's a lot of need for AI skills, but there's zero AI strategy. Nobody knows
Hmm.
how to execute and what to do with it. And
Yeah.
so, back to my question, where do you see leaders have an opportunity to, um, I would say, focus more on, oh, what's most important to them? How do they stay true to that rather than doing maybe what the competitors are? Because
Yeah.
you can't necessarily ignore competitors. I mean, that's part of the market that can,
Yep.
make a company live or die. Um, But yeah, how do you see companies balance that and leaders specifically?
Yeah. Great question. I think one of the first things that comes to mind is taking care of the internal operation, meaning your own company. Because again, control the controllables. But I feel like as companies get larger, and I want to generalize because it can happen in startups too, but especially in corporates, I'm often amazed at how much of the struggle or challenge is sort of self-inflicted, right? Meaning, looking over your shoulder, seeing if someone's coming to take your job, meaning like red tape, meaning lack of communication where one department knows this, but another, or this person told somebody skip level, and then the person in the middle feels like they're out of the loop. Like
Yeah,
just so much. I'm like, all these things are sort of self-inflicted pain. Now, I completely understand when I ran a company of 20 people, a lot easier to be on the same page. Like outside of some remote workers, we were all in the same building. So I think at all times, 18 or 19 out of 20 people were pretty dialed into exactly where we were going. So I think the challenge is how do you do that at 2000, right? And I understand it's harder, but we talked about the four C's of like company clarity. I think clarity is the most important thing. Like, are you rowing the boat in the right direction? And does everyone know where we're going? Because before we can even start thinking about technology changes like AI or competition or external things, we need to make sure that we're taking care of internally. Like it just kind of blows my mind at how companies get slowed down because of things that are sort of self-induced. Um, One of the options then I think for leaders is to be more authentic and more vulnerable. And I know both of those words are sort of trite and overused today, but I think our world could use a healthy dose of leaders who admit and understand and share that they're not perfect and they don't have everything figured out, right? Because I think we see a lot, we're seeing this in leadership today, especially in politics, that these people have to, again, the opposite of imposter syndrome, act like they know everything.
Right.
And we clearly know that they don't know it. Like we can see that they don't know everything. We have proof they don't know everything. And I just think it's really powerful to, at Leadership South Dakota, we talk about empathy being one of the core characteristics of a leader. And to me, what empathy means is the ability to walk in someone else's shoes. And so to be like, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I think this is what we think we're going to do in 2026. This is why, this is the goals. And like, if the plans change, we're going to tell you, and I think
I think
that's,
that goes a lot longer than, just having someone come in and monitor your work. And I don't know, because then employees feel like they're out of the loop and they're guessing, like, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Can I get feedback? What's happening? Why is it happening? I mean, every time I've seen problems between managers and employees, it's always because the employees don't know what's going on because there's no
yeah,
communication there.
yeah. Communication, which then leads to trust, which then is all the other issues I think maybe HR folks might deal with, like, why can't I work remote? Or why don't you trust me to get this thing done? Or can I leave a little early and then make it up later? Or like those things come down
So
to,
many problems.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that, John. And you and I spoke a little bit during kind of one of the breaks during the workshop and about a bit to that comment of South Dakota sometimes liking coming in third place. And I'm wondering
hmm
how much you feel that, in my experience, I will say, I think there's a lot of leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners that are afraid to show that vulnerability and
yeah,
afraid to show any lack of confidence for one, just how it might reflect on them, but for two,
yeah,
I can see if it's taken too far that it's tough to have your workforce follow you. I mean, you are to be a
hmm
leader, to be confident, to have that vision, like you said. And so, have you seen that, or do you think that plays into a little bit of that South Dakota culture, so to speak, the third place?
hmm
Do you think we're still warming up to some more of that vulnerability compared to other areas of the country?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I think I could. That's something I continue to learn. Leadership South Dakota has helped me. I think I always said that being a CEO, you kind of have to numb the emotions high and low. So like you don't let the highs get you too high and you can't let the lows get you down too low. We would, sign a big contract at Lemonly and then the next day someone really great would say, "Hey, I got a new job and I'm leaving." And so to weather that roller coaster, I tried to stay a little more, I don't want to say numb, but just more neutral. But I also tried to be open and honest and pretty transparent. There were days, it felt like I couldn't share everything when you're going back. Like when COVID hit, I stayed there awake, staying and staring at my wall in bed and being like, I don't know if I can pay all these people next week, and obviously things worked out okay. But, there's only so much you can share. But yet I think when you being okay that like, I don't know if I have all the answers is a big thing to say, and you said earlier, like we are talking about phones. Well, I don't want to go too deep or make it too personal. And I wanted to say, let's go there. Let's make it deep and personal, right? Like that's something I think I've been learning to be okay with being vulnerable and being okay with crying or, just letting your heart and soul. I just think at the end of the day, we're all still people. And now that doesn't mean I still always am very emphatic that leaders should say we are a team and not a family. I think you have a family. Work is not your family. But that doesn't mean you can't say, I got your back or that I care about you. Or, when I do
Yeah.
some coaching inside of teams now, the companies will say, well, like, what's our goal by the end of this program? And it's like, my goal is just that your employees know each other better and they know that they got each other's back. Because if your team is like, hey, George is helping me out, I can go to him if I feel stuck. That's so powerful.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, personally, I know we've probably all of us taken the DISC assessment maybe
Sure.
15 million times, right? I mean,
Yep.
just the way that we talk to other people according to their personality too. I mean, 'cause I'm thinking like, sure, you can tell somebody, be vulnerable, let your team know what's going on, but maybe their personality is more geared towards, I just got to hit the numbers. I want to get the metrics. I want to do like, just action oriented, but instead of, hey, I gotta tell such and such that, I don't have enough work for him, so he's got to go home today and,
Yeah.
be more personable. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think people are, either ingrained to do that naturally or not.
Yeah, I think vulnerability is actually like a muscle. You have to like train it, practice
Yeah.
it, right? You
Hmm.
have a vulnerable moment and you feel a little exposed, a little nervous. Did I say too much? Should I have said that? And then you realize it's okay. Someone
Yeah.
actually responded quite well, and then maybe they share something, and you realize, okay, I can do that. Obviously, there's times that you maybe shouldn't do that, but
Right.
yeah, I think you got to practice it, and that's something we try to do at Leadership South Dakota.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I was going to ask something about your past, which might relate to that, where times where you may have
Sure.
done that. But just for the sake of
Yeah.
time, I think I'm going to move on to another question. And Colleen, I don't know if we'll end here with some rapid fire too. Before I get to that, though, Colleen, I don't know if you have another question you want to ask. I do have one. I'd really love to get in that. If you were John, if you were starting a brand new company again today,
hmm
starting whatever it is, new passion project, and taking it off, what is the first cultural pillar that you would put in place before you even hire a person? What do you think that would be? And even if it's the same as it's been in other companies, what's that first cultural pillar of
Yeah.
the most important
Two
ones?
thoughts come to mind, and I do want to start another company, so it's going to happen. I have a couple ideas. My favorite core value from our Lemonade days was adventure, and that was this idea of, you know, take risks, break things, and make mistakes, and that's okay. I would say like just learn from those mistakes so you don't do them again. The one that came to mind now is like a new company. I think it's just maybe a close cousin of that. Would be this idea of like feeling like you're an owner or acting like an owner, or maybe even if I make a future company, the employees will be owners. I think there's one thing. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk, who's an online content creator, marketer guy, said something like, "If your employees care even half as much as you do, like you'd be lucky." And
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
think back to Lemonly, I think we got lucky there because I think people cared a lot. I mean, most of those people are even still working there. And I'd like to think I whiteboarded something perfectly and nailed the strategy, but honestly, I think the TLDR there is like I just cared. Like I cared about
Yeah.
them. They knew they cared about me, and we all cared about this thing that we were building together that was greater than us, this company. And so, if I was to put a core value into the ground, it's like it's not act like an owner because I feel like that's when leaders are asking you to do more than you're paid to do or like go beyond your sort of pay grade. But this idea of like the autonomy or freedom to make the decisions as if you are an owner.
Mm.
I think we box in a lot of our people by protocol or red tape, and I understand that it's different when you're making JPEGs versus like open heart surgery. But
All right.
I just think this idea of do what's best for the company because what's best for the
Right.
company is probably also best for all of us, likely. Or do it, yeah. I'm not sure exactly how I would word it, but something like that.
Yeah, just giving them more I don't know, I guess opportunity to do something different so they're not bored and they feel more productive or worthwhile. That's
Yeah, and here's the trick. I think any leader right now, if they're listening to that, is thinking about the people in their company that they wouldn't let do that. They're like, ooh, I don't know if I would
yeah, I know.
trust Billy. Like he's not smart enough.
Well, you
But
got to
then
know
I
your
think,
people, right? So
but
let's
I
not
think
do Billy.
here's the catch. I think if you do that, and then people start to talk about what it's like to work at company X, then you only get the best people, right? And so then
Mhm.
everybody who works there are the type of people that you would trust to make those decisions. So that's like
Right.
that's a cyclical thing there that like you should only have people on your team that you could trust to make autonomous decisions. And if you do that, and the level of the worst thing that you can do to an A player on your team is allow B and C players to just be there and get away with kind of average performance.
Yeah,
And so, like,
or tell them that they're the B and C players, not the A
sure,
players.
yeah, you
I've
got
heard
to,
people say that before, and I'm always blown away. Like, don't tell them they're a D,
yeah.
I mean, unless that's, maybe performance review and you know, you have to tell them that, but
I mean, I think it's your job to pull them up to a B or
yeah,
get them to an A as a leader. That's your job. And if you can't, then maybe it's time that maybe they can be an A
yeah,
player somewhere else, you know?
yeah. Got to coach them
Yeah,
up.
a key word you said there, well, autonomous, and before that, autonomy. That's first and foremost. Gosh, I think of just so many job interviews where um, when they ask what I value, that's such a key one because to trust people coming in, to knowing that you've hired some very strong talent, and to let people do their work, that's what they want to do. It's what they're there for. They feel an innate purpose for it. Um, and I get it. If you're the business owner, you hold the checkbook.
Mhm.
If it rise or fall, I mean, you're on the hook.
Yep.
And so that is tough to put that trust in others. But I mean, that's what the screening and vetting process is. And I can't stress it enough with companies that I've consulted with is encouraging that autonomy. I mean, the engagement, all the byproducts, it's never ending. If you don't have it, um, gosh, there's just so many benefits and upsides to it that, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
as
want to
a,
be clear that like that doesn't mean I don't want to run. That doesn't mean like this free flowing, just like let the hens rule the
Inmates
roost
run the
or
asylum.
inmates. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the saying I was
endless
trying to think of.
budget, go spend what you
That's one of
want,
my
do what you want,
besties.
all the resources in the world,
Yeah.
blank
Yeah,
check.
because I still think if you build a company that runs a process and has systems and you're going to have checks and balances, right? Like we talked about scorecards. I make all my CEOs run scorecards and by if I'm going to give you freedom and autonomy, then I'm going to expect high standards. I'm going to expect performance and results and we're going to all track that together. And we talked about that in the talk about like unleashing people's competitive side as a strength. I
Mm,
think people do are competitive. They maybe don't want to say I win, you lose, but they want to be better than who they used to be.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I just want to be clear. That doesn't mean just like oh, we're all friends, kumbaya. Like
Yeah.
I think you can
Wrong
have
word.
both if done effectively.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions to
Okay.
kind of round us out here. Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Just say like the first thing that comes to mind. So, what is your best morning habit? Like, what's one thing that you do in the first 30 minutes of your day that is non-negotiable?
I first try to wake up and have like a big drink of water. And then I wish I had this like awesome, amazing morning routine, but I try to have some water and get a little bit of fresh air quick, even in the cold. Like I take my dog
Yeah.
out to go to the bathroom and just get a little bit of fresh air. I'd like to say I, exercise and do and read a book every single day. It's not true, but it's some combination of water, fresh air, and then coffee.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, hydration, like that's key. If you don't stay hydrated, then I think you get sleepy, is what I've heard. And you can't think straight. So, all right, next is do you have like a must read? Like what is one book you've gifted to somebody else or, your go-to book that you recommend to somebody?
Yeah, I think the two I probably recommend or gift the most would be like Atomic Habits for just somebody who wants to, improve their life, become a better version of themselves. And then to leaders and CEOs, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's an awesome book. He's my coach. And so helping people recognize how to gain leverage and more space into their world. I would, I think the problem with that book is that organizations would say only the CEO or leader gets to buy back
Oh
their
yeah.
time. But how do you figure out how to let everybody buy back their time? So like Lead More Today is a 2.5 person company. And what I mean by that is it's me, my VA, and it's AI. And so what I tell her is
Mhm.
like, all right, Joanne, you report to me and AI reports to you, right? Like we should all be trying to buy back our time and create more
Yeah.
space. So,
Yeah. Love it. So energy drain, what is one business norm you wish we would just all stop doing?
um, making meetings like be either 30 minutes or 60 minutes,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Because it's
Yeah.
like that's Outlook, I think, or
Yeah.
Google. Like it's like
Yeah.
they're all set by
This could have been
15
an
minutes.
email type thing. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like the
yeah.
meeting should just be how long in the meeting to like make it 17 minutes, make it
Yeah.
21 minutes. Who cares? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Give
uh,
people back some time if you don't need
yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like it. All right. The South Dakota secret. What's the most underrated thing about building a business in the Midwest?
I think it's probably that I personally think that a lot of the personal side of living in South Dakota, we have it really, really good. So you can build a team that hopefully can like, live affordably and their kids have good schools and they have entertainment and they like the quality of life and outside of the winter, like most of the personal stuff is good. So when they come to work, they're going to be better employees and better people because hopefully they are, personally satisfied and motivated. I think, if you don't come to work with that taken care of, how are you going to be a good employee? So
Yeah.
we can build a great team because we also have a good quality of life.
Yeah. Midwest is best, And then I think I'll, end it with define leadership in exactly 3 words. How do you define a great leader?
3 words. I'll just go one. I would say care.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think leadership at the end of the day for your team, your employees, the cause, the mission, your community, and honestly for yourself would be that you need to care. And I know
Yeah.
that sounds oversimplified, but not all of our leaders do care.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, it's been amazing having you today, John.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. And to everyone listening, check out johntmeyer.com. You can sign up for his newsletter, like we mentioned earlier, and connect with him on LinkedIn. It's John T. Meyer. So,
Yeah, you bet.
Are there
Go
other
ahead.
social platforms or ways for people to get in touch if they wanted more information from you, or
Yeah, I'd say
website and LinkedIn?
the one that probably was most valuable is somebody, a lot of everything I teach or talk about, I generally have a video for. So if you go to YouTube
Mm.
and just search my name, John T. Meyer, you'll find my YouTube channel and everything from like we talked about daily non-negotiables, we talked about the 4 C's of company clarity. I do my annual kind of goal setting process, like all that I've made videos for. I just love to create content. And as a coach, it's really nice to be able to give those resources to my clients.
mhm.
But that's all free. Anybody can go out and just click subscribe. So I would say go to YouTube to find those.
All right. Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I can't say enough for everything you've provided for the January workshop as well as today. Maybe went a little longer than we should have, but very well worth the time. So thanks so much. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me as a guest. Honored to be the first one.
All right. You take care.
Awesome.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.